Okay, so Deanna and I are attempting our first batch of strawberry jam. So, what have you done so far, Deanna?
Well, first we had to pick up some pectin, and we ended up picking this up at the bulk food store down in, was it West Virginia? I don't have my reading glasses on, but anyway, West Virginia. So we do have that on hand. Make sure we have that, and we have to get all our tools together. So first, just making sure that you have clean pots and your clean tools. But first, I want to share my mom's tip. She actually said to cut the plastic around the front half of the edge and then lift it up and not tear the whole plastic off, so that when we store our preserves, that it can actually have a little bit of a cover to help keep the dust off. All right, then after that, I had to cut up strawberries, and Shane helped me mash them up, because according to the ball recipe it said mash up the strawberries. And then from there, I'm getting ready to attempt to put pectin in at first, because my first attempt actually was with my mom. We did pineapple preserves, and I ended up throwing in a bunch of sugar before we did the pectin. So stay tuned and we'll see what happens. Well, we've got 5 cups of strawberries in here and a 1/4 cup of lemon juice. And then we ended up putting 6 tablespoons of the pectin. And now we have to bring it to a boil where I can't stir it down. So we're just going to sit here. When you're doing preserves, one of the tips that my mom gave me was to add a tablespoon of butter when you're boiling it. It will help keep the foam off the top when you get ready to can it. So we'll see. It's just getting ready to do a pretty good
Okay, so we've had this strawberry jam boiling, and it says to boil until you can't boil it down anymore. So what does that mean, Deanna?
Well, right now the strawberries have been boiling, and right now you can see as I'm stirring it, the bubbles are still coming through, and it's gone for about an extra minute or two. And at that point we add the sugar. Now for me and my mom, we like the darker sugar versus the processed white sugar. Now we're just going to add this in, and then we're going to take this to where it's all soaked in. 7 cups of sugar. Here it goes.
And then how long does that, or when do we know when it's ready?
But for right now, we're going to bring this back to a rolling boil. Once we get this all melted in, it's all at the bottom. And also, because we're using the darker sugar, the 100% cane sugar, it's going to give it a richer flavor as well as it being darker. So we're going to boil this until it comes to a rolling boil for about a minute. And one of the tests we're going to do is I put a little salad plate in the freezer, and then once this starts to gel up and become really good jelly, then we're going to take and put a little bit on a plate, and we'll show you that test here in just a bit. So stay tuned as we get this to a rolling boil. Now we've got the sugar in there and it's getting ready to boil. I just wanted to take and run you through a little bit of what we have prepared while this is boiling, so we have a little bit of things happening. I've got the tongs ready with the rubber at the bottom, and in here, I better grab my silicone bits. We have the tray. I'm not going to pull that up entirely because we've got all of the jam jars in there. And we don't have them boiling, but we have them hot enough to help keep them sanitary and warm. So here's what we're going to use for our preserve jars. Put that back in there. And then over here, just so we have our tools ready, Shane got us this, I don't know, spatula with the measurements in it, because when we get ready to do our bath, we'll show you that in a minute, it allows us with the measurements to measure how much water is over the jar. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. And of course, the little stick with the magnet, we've got a hot plate here. We're trying this out. We'll stay tuned, we'll keep you posted. But we did boil some water on the stove first and then brought it over with our lids. And once we put our lids, we put our lids on the hot plate just to keep that warm. So when we get ready to transfer the jam to the jars, we'll be able to have that ready for us. I just took the glass plate out of the freezer, and we've had this going for a rolling boil for just a little bit more, because I know in some of the books and some of the recipes call for if it has a certain drip to it, but I don't know. So I'm going to try my mother's method, which seems to be a lot more foolproof for me. I'm going to put a little bit on this plate that just came out of the freezer, and I'm going to run my finger across it and see it's starting to come together. It's not quite ready yet, but if we can push that and it stays apart, I'm going to let that go for about another 30 seconds. And then we're going to give that a try. So I'm going to rinse this back off, put it back in the freezer. Store this for about another 30 seconds. And then I think we're going to be ready to can our strawberries. Alright, what we did is I'm going to end up getting another one of these funnels like my mom had. But here's all the jars we just got done doing them. Shane helped me fill them up. And we put the funnel on there so it keeps the lid as clean as possible, especially when you're dealing with jams, because you want the lid to seal to your can. And then Mom gave me this wonderful ladle, which worked out really good. You can even sit it there on the edge and it doesn't flop around. So once we did that, we grabbed all the lids out of the pot with this little tool with a magnet on the end of it. And it's still kind of pretty warm, but you don't touch it, and you just simply, when you do have your jar, you just put that on there, and then you can just roll it right off and then stick it there. And then you put the rings on it, finger tight, so basically you just whip those on there and you just give it a tiny little bit of a push to get it tight. And then we're getting ready to transfer these over there. Now Shane's already done a couple of them. We've got this rack already in the pot of water working. Since these little suckers are hot, because we just had our preserves boiling, I'm going to go ahead and stick them in the pot and get them all lined up. Now before we put the lids on it, we wiped the tops of them clean with a paper towel and then just kept rolling the paper towel so that you're not recontaminating the top of the lid, because you want the metal lid, this lid, to seal on it properly. Now one of the tips that my mother uses, and I couldn't find white vinegar to save my life, she puts a little bit of white vinegar on her paper towel and wipes the top of it. So I would definitely pass that tip on, because my mother knows best. She's been doing this longer than I have. And did I mention this is my first time doing this? Other than the pineapple preserves that I helped with Mom, but I think I messed that all up. But this is the first time I'm doing this all on my own. Here, I need to move that over. Getting these all lined up and sitting here, and as soon as we do, we're going to lower the can, or all the jars down the bottom. So now we have all the jars, 2, 4, 6, 8, we have 9 jars actually from that recipe. We lowered them in there. We have about 2.5 inches of water. It really doesn't matter too much that's over, but you do need at least 2 inches of water over this for this bath process. So we're just going to let this go for about another 10 minutes, and we'll have our 9 jars of strawberry preserves. And when we took them out, I don't know if you can notice, but there's a little bit of water on the top. A lot of people have suggested that when you pull them out, you leave the water on top. So we'll let you know how good it goes, and then we're getting ready to do our next project, which is dehydrating, so you'll have to come back and check it out. And hopefully this turned out really well.